Thank you for all being here tonight as we welcome the class of the 2016 United States Bowling Congress Hall of Fame. It's my pleasure to introduce our Master of Ceremonies. Many of you know him and recognize him as the host of these inductions with an occasional voice on our Bowl TV. Before joining the bowling industry, Jason Overstreet was an award-winning television news and sports reporter. While working as a reporter for Fox Television in Dallas-Fort Worth, he reported on a business story about the concept of the new International Bowling Campus. A lifelong bowler, after Jason reported the story, he decided to make a career change and move from in front of the camera to join the team at USBC. We're glad to have him behind the microphone again this evening. As our host, let's please welcome USBC's Deputy Executive Director, Jason Overstreet.
Thank you very much, Frank, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is certainly a pleasure to be here with you this evening in Las Vegas as part of USBC's annual meeting for these 2016 USBC Hall of Fame inductions. It really is remarkable as we're together to honor those who have made lasting contributions to the sport of bowling, both on the lanes and behind the scenes. Tonight, USBC is going to bestow the highest honor possible on 5 individuals. And to help welcome our new inductees and mark the occasion, a number of bowling legends have traveled from around the country to be with us here tonight and share in this special moment. So please join me in welcoming and giving a great round of applause as we introduce our USBC Hall of Famers in attendance tonight. Starting with, inducted in 1983, he is the only bowler to win ABC tournament titles in 3 consecutive years. From Arlington Heights, Illinois, please welcome Les Zykes. Inducted in 1988, she is a 9-time professional champion and a 6-time titleist in the USBC Women's Championships, including 3 individual all-event titles from Cypress, California, Virginia Norton. Inducted in 1994, this man won 3 Eagles in 1974 at the USBC Open Championships and is a former standout with the Great Beer teams. He's also reached the epic milestone of 100,000 pins at the Open Championship.
Mr. Bob Hart. Inducted in 1995, she is a 17-time women's professional champion and still on top of her game, holding numerous senior titles. She's certainly going to be also a proud daughter tonight. Welcome, Joan Romeo.
Inducted in 1998, he's a 10-time winner on the PBA Tour and has 4 Eagles in the USBC Open Championships, including a doubles title with the legendary Carmen Salvino from Costa Mesa, California, Barry Asher. Inducted in 1999, she has 10 professional titles to her credit and 3 titles at the USBC Women's Championships. From Tacoma, Washington, Jeannie Nacarone. Inducted in 2000, she served the sport as a business leader, promoter, and coach. She was president of the BWBA for 10 years, coached Team USA, and was a pioneer organizer for competitive tournaments for senior women. From Henderson, Nevada, Jeanette Robinson. Inducted in 2000, this longtime bowling leader has served for more than 3 decades at the national level, including president of the American Junior Bowling Congress, USA Bowling, and serving as bowling's representative to the USOC. From Castro Valley, California, Elaine Hagan. Inducted in 2000 as the first woman ever honored by WIBC as a Canadian, she was instrumental in the formation of the British Columbia Women's 10-Pin Bowling Federation and the Canadian 10-Pin Bowling Federation. From Victoria, British Columbia, Hazel McCleary. Inducted in 2001, she is a 6-time professional title winner and was the first woman to roll back-to-back certified 300 games from Houston, Texas. Welcome, Carol Norman. Inducted in 2001, this man has multiple PBA titles to his credit. He is one of the most successful players ever at the USBC Open Championships and is a USBC gold level coach from Vernon Hills, Illinois, Bill Spigner. Inducted in 2002, she has 25 professional titles with over $1 million in career earnings. A living legend from Colorado Springs, Colorado, Tish Johnson. Inducted in 2002, he won 3 Eagles in 2 years at the USBC Open Championships and won the inaugural FIQ World Senior Open Masters from Wichita, Kansas, Mark Jensen. Inducted in 2006, he has dedicated his career to the advancement of youth and women's bowling. He was a founding partner of the Women's Professional Tour, and his effort and concepts were a leading factor in creating what today is USBC High School program from Rockford, Illinois. Please welcome John Summers. Inducted in 2008, she has 27 professional titles, including that spectacular and memorable win of the U.S. Women's Open in Cowboy Stadium not too long ago from North Ogden, Utah, Leanne Holsenberg. Inducted in 2008, she is a 23-time professional champion, gold medalist for Team USA, a world-renowned coach, and one of the best television analysts in the business from Keller, Texas, Carolyn Doran Ballard. Inducted in 2009, she has won 20 professional titles and 5 USBC Women's Championships titles. At the age of 22, she became the youngest to complete the Triple Crown of women's professional bowling. She's also the only woman to win the regular singles title at the Open Championships from Henderson, Nevada, Wendy McPherson. Inducted in 2011, she has nearly a dozen professional titles and an all-events title from the USBC Women's Championships from Hemet, California, Cheryl Robinson. Inducted in 2011, he's a former Team USA member, best known for rising to the occasion on the lanes at the USBC Open Championships, a 5-time Eagle winner from Oregon, Wisconsin, Jeff Riggles. Inducted in 2011, he won 13 PBA titles, including 4 majors from Keller, Texas, Del Ballard Jr. Inducted in 2013, she is the 1995 USBC Queens Champion and a 3-time Senior Queens Champion, making her one of only 2 women to win both of those events. From Lansing, Illinois, Sandy Postma. Inducted in 2013, she is a 3-time titleist at the USBC Women's Championships and was the first 2-time winner of the USBC Queens. From Rockledge, Florida, Shirley Levens. Inducted in 2014, he's a 4-time Eagle winner at the Open Championships and took home gold for Team USA in the Pan American Games. From Orlando, Florida, John Gaines. Inducted in 2014, he has 4 titles at the USBC Open Championships to go along with 2 Senior Masters titles. From Cedarburg, Wisconsin, please welcome Dale Traber. And inducted in 2015, she has 20 professional titles, 5 titles at the USBC Women's Championships, more than 24 medals for Team USA, and is the reigning PWBA Player of the Year from Cheektowaga, New York, Liz Johnson. Let's have another round of applause for all of our Hall of Famers, and thank you so much for being here with us to celebrate this evening and continue the rich tradition of the USBC Hall of Fame. Now, let's welcome our newest class of Hall of Famers. Great sports organizations really can only be possible, whether it be USBC or other nonprofits that are focused on sports, with great leadership of volunteers. The reality is, athletes and staff can only take a vision for the sport so far. To truly deliver on successful major projects that impact the sport, it requires a very special type of volunteer leader who can mobilize the cause. It's not an easy combination to find. Selflessness, relentlessness, passion, respect of the community. I think we'd all agree those words describe Joan Romeo. They also happen to be traits of a wonderful parent. Joan Romeo blended her passion for family with a strong professional background and shared those traits whenever bowling called upon her to serve. Her work and generosity has led to many successful projects in our sport and certainly a Hall of Fame-worthy resume. Let's take a moment and learn more about Joan Romeo.
How rare is it that a mother supports the professional career of one of her children so well that she ends up in that profession's Hall of Fame? Joan Romeo got involved in the sport of bowling when her children were very young, and her daughter Robin would go on to become one of the greatest champions in the history of the sport.
Better shot there. Robin Romeo wins the Seagram's Coolers U.S. Open.
But before Joan became one of the top movers and shakers in bowling, she worked in the TV and film industry and later became a successful public relations executive.
Joan was a hotshot ad executive in PR, person out of New York City many, many years ago. And what I love best about Joan is there was a time Joan was known as Robin's mother. That's not the case anymore. It's Joan Romeo.
She also served as a mentor to many of bowling's top executives.
I met Joan back in early 1990s, I think. I was working at the Peppermill Hotel Casino and getting into the ABC, WIBC bowling tournaments. And Joan kind of came on the scene, and she was my go-to person for Bowling Knowledge 101 and helped a young, ambitious, energetic young woman, myself, to learn the business.
Romeo had a real knack for fundraising, helping to secure financial support for numerous industry initiatives over the years.
A pretty recent one with raising the money for the PWBA room at the museum. You know, we worked really hard, had a great committee, and the joke was that because I was persistent is why we got Station Casinos to come up with the $50,000.
The list of organizations and positions which Romeo has held is a long one that includes Vice President and President of the International Bowling Media Association, President of the California Bowling Writers, Executive Coordinator for World Bowling, and Trustee to the International Bowling Museum and Hall of Fame.
When we have something going on with the International Bowling Museum and Hall of Fame, when we start up something like the Extravaganza, who's going to help us with sales and sponsorship? You can go in and not only speak to everyone and the customers and the manufacturers, but deliver. Because it's hard to say no to Joan.
I'm very fortunate that nobody ever says no.
Joan has also earned numerous industry awards for her tireless work in many different facets of the sport. But her favorite accomplishment of all is being a great mom. And the truest endorsement of that comes from her famous daughter.
We have just a great, loving, fun relationship. And I hate when she doesn't come and watch me bowl, because I know how much I like having her there, and I know how much she enjoys it. And it's something that it's like I need her there, you know, and it's a good thing. So she's my best friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the category of meritorious service from Van Nuys, California, please join us in welcoming Joan Romeo into the USBC Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Frank. Thank you to the USBC and its board of directors. Thank you to Chad Murphy, my longtime friend. And thank you to Fran Deacon for nominating me. And another thank you to Bob Johnson and the Hall of Fame committee for voting me in. And a special thank you to Bob and Michelle Johnson for including me in their wedding festivities. How much nicer it was to learn of this honor at their reception instead of being home alone with no one to celebrate with. The way Bob worked it out, I had about 100 of my peers. And I can't talk. I'm so nervous. Little did I know that this was only the beginning. For somebody who's not used to being in the limelight, all this attention was quite overwhelming. In a million years, I never dreamed I'd be standing here before you. After watching so many of my friends being inducted, I never really thought it was going to happen to me. But thank you to all the people who supported and promoted me during the last 30 years. And believe me, there have been many, including some of whom are present this evening. I did what I did as a way of giving back because bowling has given me so much. I've had the pleasure of watching my two daughters. I knew the minute I got to the kids. The pleasure of watching my two daughters bowl at the highest level. And I've watched as they both have been recognized for their accomplishments. I'm recognized and welcomed in most bowling circles because of them. And quite frankly, most of the time I was not accepted as Joan Romeo, but rather than, as Keith pointed out, as the mother of Robin and Tori. It's been a wonderful journey, and I'm thankful to all those who made it possible, starting with Bill Chrisman, who was my first industry sponsor, and then over the years, he, Barbara, Dave Sims, and the entire Storm family continued their support. Elaine Hagan, who you all know, was instrumental in getting me involved internationally and first introduced me to the International Bowling family in 1995 during the FIQ Congress. I was totally hooked and wanted to get more involved, and soon thereafter I was on a plane to Dubai. But now in recent years, thanks to Kevin Dornberg, I am still involved. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my California bowling family and Mary Lindley, former state president, who did her best to educate me about the ways and rules of state associations. And then soon after that, thanks to Agnes Duffy, who's no longer with us, I was appointed to the board of the California Bowling Writers. In that position, I met Scott Frager and his bowling industry family, who have always helped me promote whatever I was working on. And now my special friend David Garber, who moved to California a couple of years ago, is part of Scott's family and actually lives a short distance from my house. To thank my friends from Nevada, I would have to quote Jim Goodwin from a recent article stating that I was actually known as the Queen of Reno and how Reno became my home away from home because of what I was able to accomplish there, thanks to the Carano family, Rick Murdoch, Jennifer Cunningham, John McGinnis, Don Goodman, Candy English, and Bob Thomas for their continued support. Pat Sinello and Darryl Fruing are two unique individuals who are great guys and good friends, and when I'm down, I can always count on them to make me smile. I'm sure you have all run into them at one time or another, or should I say maybe away from them, as they both always have their hands out asking for money for the Hall of Fame. My other buddy, Keith Hamilton, has always been there no matter what. He was responsible for me being invited to join the International Bowling Museum and Hall of Fame Board of Directors. And I served on the committee commissioned to raise money for the room dedicated to the PWBA, thanks to Jim Goodwin, as he was chair and asked me to help. We continue to raise money for the hall through the extravaganza. And if anybody out there wants to learn more, all they have to do is talk to one of us or Greg Williams and another good buddy, Dennis Matthews, bowling operations manager from Red Rock. And now, if you'll permit me, I would like you to meet my greatest accomplishments. Oh, God. My kids. That's Billy Romeo, Deborah Romeo, Robin, and Tori, who you all know, and David, my youngest son. And my grandchildren, Danielle, Annabella, Marissa, Clinton, Tyrone, Bill Jr., and David Monson. Wait, I didn't get there yet. He's a great-grandson, Noah Monson. Let everybody see you. And then we found out today that David and his wife Jackie are going to have a little girl in September. I'm not going to say what I was going to say at the end because I'll never get through it, but thank you all. I truly appreciate this recognition.
Congratulations again, Joan, and so wonderful to see so many of your members of your family here sharing the evening with us tonight. I think that we see across all sports that those with special consecutive streaks are really a different breed. Think about those that have put up these amazing records over time in other sports, for example. Consider Brett Favre in football, Cal Ripken in baseball, just to name a couple. What sets them apart from the rest? It's more than just talent. To compete at the professional level at every opportunity without a pause requires a very special makeup to be able to endure both the physical and mental pressures. In Harry Sullins' career, he displayed the talent of a champion and a Hall of Famer. There certainly is no doubt about that. But beyond all of the titles, a number that stands out looking at his resume is the record 239 consecutive PBA tournament appearances. Consider the toughness and dedication required for that just a moment. The personal sacrifice, not just the athletic commitment. It's a remarkable feat, but of course, you don't make the Hall of Fame just by showing up. Harry did plenty of winning out there. Let's take a look at the career of Harry Sullins.
Growing up in the Metro Detroit area, it was kind of easy to get into bowling because when you think about it, they always say the Motor City. Well, you think of automobiles, but it's also the bowling capital of the world. I mean, the names just go on and on. They're everywhere. And I guess you might want to say, hey, to be included in that bunch, it's special.
After earning the nickname The Legend for his tremendous success in local competition, Harry Sullins set his sights on the PBA Tour after 3 years at Vincennes University.
Wow, the environment of the PBA Tour, like from 1985 to 1995, I like to say it was a heyday. Walter Ray Williams, Pete Weber, Brian Voss, Tom Baker, and the names go on and on.
Sullins routinely locked horns with some of the best players in the history of the sport, and took home his first PBA Tour title the same year the great Walter Ray Williams Jr. earned his first Player of the Year award.
I used to say there's a 5-point plan out here to win. And one of the press guys asked me, a 5-point plan? What's that? I says, well, you have to beat Pete Weber, Parker Bone, Tom Baker, Walter Ray Williams, and Umberto Monticelli. And if you can beat those 5 guys, you got a pretty good chance to win.
Sullins' biggest win on tour came at the 1992 Showboat Invitational. Sullins was also well known for setting the PBA record for the most consecutive tournaments, participating in 239 consecutive events.
The streak was unusual on the PBA Tour because, at the time, I was a young man and I'd come on the tour late in life. I didn't start touring until I was 28 years old. So I kind of made the decision that if I'm going to bowl on tour, I got to bowl every week.
When it comes to explaining his career, the Motor City native appropriately chooses a driving metaphor.
It's like driving down the highway. You have to choose which way your career is going to go. If you're on the freeway, do you take exit 1, exit 2? Well, is it to the right, to the left, or are you going to make a U-turn? And I guess I just stayed on the freeway going full blast, and it's taken me here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the veterans category from Chesterfield Township, Michigan, please join us in welcoming Harry Sullins into the USBC Hall of Fame.
Wow, how is everybody? Is this great or what? I'd like to say hello to all my fellow Hall of Famers now. I'm with the club. Thank you. For those special bowlers out there, you all know how hard it is to win tournaments, stay on the road. stay away from family, home. But then again, you make new friends and enemies. Hopefully your friends can be your enemies, then it's a little easier. A lot of friendship through the years. Of course, my fellow Hall of Famers here, I can say I'm friends with a lot of them. And then again, we can be enemies on the lanes, but off the lanes, we take that friendship. I guess for some of you people, you know that the NFL draft is tonight. So let me throw a little history at you. Maybe didn't plan on it that way. I like to refer to the year 1957 as a kind of peculiar year, especially if you're from Michigan. Well, that was the year they joined the Upper Peninsula with the Lower Peninsula with the Mackinac Bridge. Something nice. And then again that year, the Detroit Lions won the NFL championship, and they've never appeared in a Super Bowl. Why is that? And of course, in the Hall of Fame range, I'll throw out a name of a famous Hall of Famer also, Mr. Tony Lindemann. He passed away a couple of years ago, a good friend. In 1957, he was the world's #1 bowler from Detroit. But that's not the best thing. I was born. So, of course, through the years, it's been that long, hard road. I guess you can always thank your parents. I thank my parents for getting me involved in bowling. Down the road, getting into college, my choice to go to Vincennes University actually, I guess you could say, kick-started that bowling career. 2 or 3 years bowling collegiately, running around the country with my friends and teammates, driving, of course. In college, you don't fly too often. And then from there, I guess I like to look at it as parts of 5 careers, because Michigan State and the Detroit metro area is so huge in bowling. I'm glad I can say I'm a Detroit Hall of Famer and a Michigan State Hall of Famer. As I mentioned, it's the bowling capital of the world, and it's still the largest organization that we have in the USBC. So my hat's to the delegates here from Detroit. Part of that, of course, if you saw some of the highlights, I like to refer to three or four little careers: the PBA Tour, the PBA 50 Tour, the Regional Tour, and PBA 50 Regional Tour. And if you did see part of one highlight from 2009, winning the Senior World Championship as a big major for the PBA 50 and the world, kind of re-kick-started my senior career or my PBA career. So since then, I've done pretty fair at it. It's not too bad, but it can always be greater. And I'd like to also congratulate the inductees tonight, and a little story with Mr. Mike Durbin. Of course, some of you may or may not recall, he was our announcer on tour for quite a few years. The one highlight you did see it was from Windsor, Canada, 1987, and there was no commentary. I can vaguely repeat what Mike Durbin mentioned at the end of that telecast. Harry Sullins has won again, and you never know when he can do that again. Thanks, Mike. So, of course, winning again, maybe not as great as some of the other champions, Pete Weber, Walter Ray, and all of our other fellow competitors, Norm Duke, and, who's there. But they left that little corner where I can sneak in. So between state, city, and everything, it's not bad. And I'm a Hall of Famer. Thank you. So as my thanks and as my goodbye notation for a lot of the players for many, many years, it's always been known that little nickname on the side of legend. Well, let me throw this one at you. In 1960 is when I began bowling. A gentleman down, I don't know if he's down south, but Roy Orbison, one of the old singers from the old heydays, He had a song that year in 1960 that might have fit the bill really good, but the title of that song was perfect. I'm a legend in my time. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Harry. Over the years, it's been very humbling, both personally and professionally, to be able to host these induction ceremonies. And it's been very interesting as well to see the different personality traits and combinations that come together to mold a Hall of Famer. All of them have great physical games. That certainly is a prerequisite of having a chance to be able to get on this stage, but it's rarely enough by itself. It takes an additional special gift, kind of like how all superheroes have their own special powers. If you'd ask those who know Steve Kloempken best, I think they would tell you his special gift is his intellect. The capacity to not only understand the complex physics and mathematics of the modern game, but also that ability to process and problem solve. There's another consistent term used to describe Steve, and that's teammate. He's someone you want on your team, which makes it easy to see why his Hall of Fame career is highlighted by collegiate team championships, gold medals for Team USA, and Eagles at the USBC Open Championships. Let's learn more about the career of Steve Kloempken.
It's very hard to find a person who doesn't speak with the highest possible praise for Steve Kloempken.
Character-wise, you can't really, he's one of those guys that's just true to form, honest, cares about people, made it easy to be friends with Steve.
Steve's just a class act. I mean, I don't think you would run into anybody that would say any different.
I don't really know anybody who doesn't like Steve. Anybody who met him and knows him likes him. He's a good guy. He's got a lot of integrity.
I mean, Steve's just a nice guy, really. And his integrity, there's no question about his integrity.
Kloempken grew up in Las Vegas, where his mother worked as a league secretary in one of the most famous bowling establishments in the world.
My mom had ran a bowling league at the Showboat. She was a league secretary there. So I'd go there to watch, and I was like, hey, maybe I think I want to do this.
The practice soon began to pay off, so Kloempken entered the local Team USA qualifying tournament and eventually found himself making the national team at the age of 20.
When you go to an international competition, the team that the other competitors and other coaches gather behind to watch during practice session and see and take note of what equipment are they using, what surface are they using, what's their strategy on this lane condition or so is Team USA. Team USA is the leader. That makes me proud.
After another appearance on Team USA and 3 consecutive national championships at Wichita State University, Kloempken decided to pursue a career in the bowling business, where he's become one of the top technical experts and marketing executives in the industry.
Steve he's a technician on the lanes. He understands the game. He understands every aspect of the game, as far as I'm concerned, from the bowling ball technology to the lane surfaces and the pins, and he's just a student of the game.
But he's also continued to excel in the competitive side of the sport in the USBC Open Championships tournament, where he's taken home 2 Eagles and still holds one of the highest career averages in tournament history.
Just good team chemistry. You know each other. It's kind of like a good coaching program, right? Where you have a good coach or good instructor, somebody that kind of connects with you. And then when you go there, it's like, it's just a lot. It makes everybody can kind of bowl better individually when you have that good team chemistry.
When you bowl with Steve, he's always prepared. He's always into it. He's there to do one thing, and that's to win. As he's proven, with the Eagles that he's won. You just know that you got to give your best because at any given time that you're in there to win, and you could do it with Steve.
And true to all of the nice things people say about him, Kloempken is characteristically appreciative when he thinks about his new and permanent place as a member of the USBC Hall of Fame.
That's kind of the cool thing with, I guess being inducted so young. I guess there's a lot of time to enjoy it.
In the category of Outstanding USBC Performance from Pleasant View, Utah, please join us in welcoming Steve Kloempken into the USBC Hall of Fame.
Thanks, everyone. Listening to that and listening to those nice words that Bill and Corbett and Dave had to say about me, you'd almost think I was a saint. And well, ask Dave about the time in Akron, about 1993, when I re-racked on him about 5 or 6 times, trying to win that damn 30 bonus pins. And I don't think he was thinking I was such a saint back then. But I'd like to start by congratulating my fellow inductees tonight. I'd also like to thank the USBC and the Hall of Fame committee members who felt that my resume stacks up with so many of the other greats. And I have to thank all the pioneers in our sport, Dick Weber's, Don Carter's, Carmen Salvino's, and so many others. And in case I hyperventilate up here, I'm going to thank my mom. And my wife. Thank you. I'm also grateful for having so many friends here and our Storm family too. Thank you, everybody. So if you don't mind, here's my story. I wasn't always a bowler. I actually considered myself to be more of a soccer player, actually. When I was young, I was absolutely positive I was going to be the next Pele. There was no doubt in my mind. And I grew up here in Vegas, as you saw, and went to the Showboat just to kind of help fill a spot on a team with one of my mom's friends, and said that if I was going to join an adult league that I would be forgiving any chance to earn any future scholarship money with the YABA, but I was a soccer player, I was like, that's fine. I knew that was my future, so. I was only bowling just to help out, my mom's work friends there, so I bowled that season and then also bowled the next, and after getting my own custom fit bowling ball, I was hooked. And so I thought, well, how hard can it be to change my status, as a junior bowler? And so I had to petition the AJBC in Greendale, Wisconsin, and get my youth status reinstated. And thankfully they did. And all this because I bowled as an adult, and earned probably about $5 or so in change, and spent that right after on Pac-Man. I have no doubt about it, but. It's really cool we're having it here in Vegas, although it was a much smaller town in the 80s, as you know. I still remember riding on my bike to go get in a few games of practice before the next week of league. And you know how some kids would sneak out of the house at night? My friends did it all the time, but I'm pretty sure I was the only one that snuck out of the house to go watch scratch bowling, and I'm thankful I did. But sneaking back into the house was always the real challenge, wasn't it, Mom? And I also remember this one time I got sent to the principal's office for causing some commotion, and they wouldn't let me go home on the school bus, so my mom had to come pick me up. And I had a lesson scheduled that afternoon with Don Johnson. And so she picked me up, took me straight to the bowl, and I had my lesson that day. And I thought I was off scot-free, but not exactly. So once I got home, I had my second or third lesson of the day, but thanks, Mom. I was very fortunate to grow up here as one of the greatest bowling cities in the world. We had the great 2 tournaments at the Showboat, which Harry won, and I guarantee I will do my best to find that champion's plaque. I've got some connections here at the Showboat, so we can find that for him. But Vegas saw many key events in our history, like explosion of megabucks tournaments. Local resident Paul Renterie actually won 2 of them for $200,000 each. here in Vegas. And on top of that, we had pot games nearly every afternoon. John Cocci, Jim Moran, Frank DiFilippo, Dan Nadeau are here. Great doubles team. Brad Adams, and Paul Wolf, Dr. Derek Pledger, and Daryl Smith, who are here tonight. So thank you guys. And sport of bowling has both given and taught me a wide variety of topics like concentration, responsibility, and respect, as my good friend and mentor, Dr. Pledger, pointed out. And I have a lot of respect for so many people in our sport, so many to thank, like Bill Hall, who taught me how to use my legs to bowl and not my arm, although I wasn't thanking him so much the day after when I could barely walk. But it was a valuable lesson, and I have to thank Bill for all his help. Throughout high school and my early years in college, oddly enough, I never actually dreamed of being on Team USA. I was just kind of pursuing, like trying to find the best tournament I could find every weekend, and it just so happened that one time I earned the right to compete in the state finals, which it was held at the El Rancho for all you local Vegas history buffs. It was a couple miles up the street on the Strip. It's not here anymore, but it's a cool place. And then I advanced to the finals in Fremont, California, and earned a spot at the national finals in Chicago upon qualifying for the team there and making the ESPN finals. I didn't learn until the day after that I was actually going to be bowling in Cuba and Singapore the next year. And my great friend and Team USA teammate Ralph Sullins is here tonight. Thanks, Ralph. And we had the unique distinction of sharing a room in Cuba. And if you have not spent a week in Cuba in August in an apartment with no air conditioning and about a little 8-inch circular fan, you have no idea what you're missing. But I don't know how many people have stood just a few feet away either from Fidel Castro and lived to tell about it, but he was there every day, and he was like super pumped and into the competition. It was pretty cool to see. And how many sports can bring fearless dictators and failed pro soccer players together? But bowling did that. So after Cuba, we were off to Singapore for the World Championships, and what a great country and what a gracious host. If you've never competed for Team USA, it's hard to describe the feeling, but I can tell you that I was proud to have a lot of supporters there from the ABC, and we met a lot of great people there too, many of who we're still friends with today, even like the pro shop operator there at that tournament. But to get the chance to represent your country and compete with the likes of Pat Healy and Vince Biondo and Ron Moore, I call him the Iron Man of bowling. He just averaged 251 this week, I think, in qualifying as a super senior on the PBA 50 tour. So how cool was that? But what I still find kind of odd right now is that we flew halfway around the world to represent our country, but we didn't know anything in advance about the lanes or the oil patterns, not the length, not the volume, not the lane surface, nothing. Can you imagine that nowadays? So now you can't even bowl a weekend no tap without somebody asking you, I call them the 3 dreaded words, what's the pattern? So Chad Murphy, where are you? You're welcome. After competing for Team USA and meeting a lot of great coaches and working with great coaches like Fred Borden and Gordon Vatican, I was off to Wichita State with my good friend Brent Bartman, who's here tonight. Brent, thanks. To get my bachelor's. And I didn't know what I was getting into when David Garber and Coach Vatican, David's here tonight, recruited me in 1992, but it was one of the best experiences ever. I learned a lot in my time at WSU. It wasn't always in the classroom, and I'll never forget the tournament at North Kansas City Pro Bowl. I know Brent won't forget it. I'm sure David won't either. When we voted our own team the sportsmanship winner, as long as it did not include David Garber. And I'm not telling you that tonight because David's here, but because David actually wrote that in on the ballot himself, which got him into more trouble. But thanks, Dave, for being here, and it was an awesome time college bowling. Please do all you can to promote it and give back, especially if you've competed in collegiate bowling. And if you haven't been to a collegiate tournament in a while, do yourself a favor, go watch one sometime soon in the near future. You'll love the energy and the excitement. And if you do go, please root for the Shockers, because they're probably going to win anyways. So how about a Shockers? Yeah. Which brings me to my life after college bowling. I was so fortunate to get hired by Storm Bowling Products just a few months after graduating from WSU. I have to thank Bill and Barb Chrisman and Storm for giving me the opportunity to represent our company at the ABC Nationals tournament in Salt Lake City in 1996. It's a tournament that Bill Spigner remembers well. We were just talking about that earlier today. Building and running a booth for the first time was no easy task, and it was a big investment, but at the same time a huge opportunity for us, and it was a lot of fun as well. Too, I got to tell you, it wasn't until near the end of the tournament when I bowled a 160 in the final game of a 8-gamer nearby. I came back to the booth and walked into the back storeroom where all our balls were located and heaved my 2-ball toad into the drywall, where it stayed perched in the drywall literally for about 5 weeks. So, not one of my finer moments, I know, but competitive juices were still there, and I just need to learn how to channel them in a little bit more productive way. And I'm still trying to. If you'll ask my teammates from state tournament this year, they'll be glad to fill you in on the details. Maybe later at the Alligator Bar, I think you might be able to find them and us, and we can expand on that. But I had the pleasure of repping some of the best players in the world as well, too. The first time I was repping on my own for the PBA Tour, I was actually repping, with Pete Weber was there. We were bowling the Tournament of Champions in Kansas City. And, you know, Pete can be a little intimidating, especially for a first-time ball rep. And I went down there. It was obvious that it was time to move and make a big move, and he was not playing the lanes right. So it was first time, I tapped him on the shoulder. So I took a deep breath, tapped him on the shoulder. Okay, Pete, it's time to make a big move. You got to do something here. You got to move about 10 left with your feet or so. Soften up your hand, get around it, and hook it a little bit, get the ball come back. So he looked at me like I was nuts, but he did it, and thankfully he struck, and only then could I exhale. And it was a big exhale, believe me. If I hadn't have been a ball rep, I wouldn't have met my wife, Marcia. I went down to work the Queens and helped train our new tour rep, Chris Schlemmer, when I noticed Marcia bowling. I'd met her once or twice before, but I'd never really talked to her, so we watched her bowl for a bit, and then one frame, Chris and I saw her leave a ring in 10, and she gently nudged the ball return on her way back, a little Pele moment herself, and it was love at first sight. That's all it was. So, but she's been so supportive of my bowling and a phenomenal bowler in her own right. How many people here can say they've shot 847 at the U.S. Open? And who drilled her that ball? Any guesses? Someone want to raise? No, it's not me, but that person's in the room tonight. Chad Murphy. He did it. So Chad, that's 2 for you now. So I better hit you up for something good sometime soon. All right. So a few years later, in 2003, my team encouraged David Haynes and me to find a couple new teammates because they weren't really competing that much, and we were still bowling quite a bit more. So we found Bill Hoffman, Sean Rash, and Ted Hannes in need of 2 players, and so lucky us. You know, it was just super fortunate, great timing. So we headed down to the ABC Nationals there in Knoxville in search of the team event title, and we came up 6 pins short, which wasn't any fun. Losing by just that little amount, you can pick up 6 pins anywhere. But it somehow was able to kind of fight back, and I was fortunate enough to earn the All Events title that year. And you know, the funny thing about that tournament going in is that I was really just hoping to help the team out, you know, and Bill Hoffman, I think a lot of you probably know Bill in this room, is just an awesome person and able to keep people loose like no other. And so it reminded me of the time just a few years later. Actually, we were bowling with Rhino Page in Baton Rouge. It was Rhino for President team we had for a couple years ago, and it was awesome. And so anyways, we're bowling the team event, and Bill Hoffman's on a strike in the 4th, gets up in the 5th, 4 through the middle. And we were kind of struggling. He takes a big step to the left side of the lane, wheels it out to the gutter, and what happens? Goes right in the gutter, 4 out. So he kind of walks back with his head down, and he told us later he couldn't bear it, you know, looking at us in the eye at that time, understandably so, but what did he do, a great champion like Bill? He struck out that game for the last 7 and started the 3rd game with the front 9. In the team event, with the lanes changing that much every frame, 16 in a row. So fortunate to have a lot of great teammates and incredible bowlers like Bill and David and so many others over the years. I think I've bowled the vast majority of you in here at some point in some team event. So, which brings me to my time in Arlington, Texas, and I was happy to serve the USBC in helping guide the tech department transition from Wisconsin to Texas. And I gained a lot of knowledge and perspective into the inner workings of our sport and have nothing but optimism for the future of competitive bowling. And how can you see an event like Junior Gold coming up with 3,400 competitive young bowlers and not be optimistic? So in closing, thanks again to Storm for bringing me back in a role to help develop new products, giving me the chance to start back coaching internationally. I'd coached Korea for many years prior, and that's South Korea, not North, but and most recently the Singapore national bowling team, and that's a lot of fun coaching. They all train like Olympic athletes and have proven themselves over the years to be a very strong competition for Team USA, and I think that competition has helped everybody get better. So thanks for listening to my story. I know it was a bit long, but thank you for listening, and please feel free to remind others of the virtues of helping out mothers. When they ask, as you never know where it might lead you to. Thanks. Barrett Hulsenberg, that one's for you, Barrett. Listen to your mother. Thanks.
Congratulations again, Steve. When you stop and think about the household names of the PBA Tour, I think that Mike Durbin comes to the top of nearly any list. He burst onto the scene in 1967, winning 2 titles and claiming Rookie of the Year honors. It was the start of a remarkable pro career that would span 3 decades. Durbin went on to win 14 titles, including a remarkable 3 Tournament of Champions titles. Once his playing days on the tour came to an end, Durbin found a way to make the show every week, broadcasting. Bowling fans quickly learned Durbin's broadcasting and communication skills were those of a top-tier professional. Let's take a look at the career of a man with Hall of Fame credentials, both on the lanes and behind the microphone.
In 1967, Mike Durbin's very first PBA Tour event in Tucson, Arizona didn't turn out exactly as planned, but it would light a fire in the young star.
That was the first time that I had made the cut, and then I was battling to try and get into the finals and didn't make it, but I did cash. And I was really I wasn't satisfied at all. I was very disappointed. And the next tournament was in San Jose, California. And I just kept telling myself on the drive all the way up there that they were going to hear from me.
Durbin took home PBA Rookie of the Year honors in 1967 when he won 2 titles, which qualified him to compete in the Firestone Tournament of Champions at Riviera Lanes in Akron, Ohio, where he would amass one of the best records ever in bowling's most prestigious event.
It just got to a point where I expected to do well there, and I did. It just fit my game. You had to be accurate, you had to have a heavy roll, you had to be patient because you got tapped a lot, and I was a patient bowler.
After winning the event in 1972, Durbin returned a decade later, looking to win it for the second time.
All right. Mike Durbin.
In 1984, Durbin would go on to become the first bowler ever to win the Tournament of Champions 3 times.
Once again, the winner of the Firestone Tournament of Champions is Mike Durbin.
Toward the end of his competitive career on tour, Durbin received the opportunity to become the tour's color analyst on ESPN and became one of the most popular announcers ever to call bowling.
I loved it. I loved it more than the bowling, and I had an ability to be able to see things sometimes that other people didn't see.
In addition to his expert commentary, Durbin also hosted a series of popular bowling tips called Average Builders.
For tonight's Average Builder, we're going to look at something really very simple, but absolutely fundamental to the sport of bowling.
On the strength of his 14 career tour victories, Durbin was elected to the PBA Hall of Fame in 1984, but he is perhaps most proud of being selected number 22 on the PBA's list of the 50 greatest bowlers of all time.
It meant the world to me. I mean, just first of all, to be in the top 50, and then to wind up, I was watching it every week after that, and still didn't see my name, and I kept going and couldn't believe that I was in the top 25.
And now, 8 years after being named to the PBA's 50 greatest list, the man who's already accomplished so much in the sport is being honored yet again.
I was just thrilled, absolutely thrilled, and still am, to get inducted into the USBC Hall of Fame.
In the category of superior performance from Hollywood, California, please join us in welcoming Mike Durbin into the USBC Hall of Fame.
Boy, who was that old guy there? Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, fellow Hall of Fame members, the first thing I want to do is thank everyone who made this wonderful event possible. I'd like to thank those that prepared the food, those that planned the evening, and a special thanks for those that voted for me. Being selected to the USBC Hall of Fame truly is the culmination of my career. It's a career that probably started 65 years ago, when as a 10-year-old boy, I used to go down to Marlindo Lanes in Burbank, California, and bowl whenever I got the chance. And my main accomplishment at that time was a 151 game. I actually saved the score sheet. That was back when proprietors used to give you score sheets and pencils and you had to keep your own score. Then a few years later, when I was 15, I joined my dad's men's league. And one night on lanes 7 and 8, in a little 8-lane center called Airway Alleys in Burbank, California that my folks owned, I started with the first 9 in a row. Then I got nervous and crossed over Brooklyn, left a 5-pin, picked it up and struck for 279. It was still my high game for several years to follow. Then as I turned into my 20s, I started bowling local tournaments around the Southern California area and bowled action. I can't tell you the number of pot games that I bowled all night long. My wife can tell you. And we bowl all night long and then go out to breakfast the next morning, especially at San Fernando Bowl in San Fernando, California. And after that, I joined the Professional Pacific Coast Bowlers Association. They held tournaments again all over Southern California. And they patterned their format after the PBA Tour, and it was a great training ground for the PBA Tour. Then at age 25, I joined the PBA. And in, what was it, Jay? 49 years ago, in 1967 in January, we started on the PBA Tour in Tucson, Arizona. I cashed in that first event. Jay Robinson made the finals in that first event. We went together. Anyway, as I look back on it now, that started my career that ended in the Tournament of Champions in 1986, where I finished 6th. A 20-year career on the PBA Tour. I look back on it now, it has had its ups and downs, as life on the PBA Tour does. The 3 highlights, obviously, were the 3 Firestone wins. Probably the biggest disappointment was losing to Earl at the PBA National in Toledo, Ohio. But as I look at it now, it was a magical time for me, really. And more than that, it was, I think, my niche in life. It's where I belonged. So if I had it to do all over again, I'd be right back out there competing and trying to win. But nobody gets to a point in his or her career like this tonight without help from a lot of other people. And I'd like to spend just a few minutes now thanking some, but certainly not all, of those people. The first person I'd like to thank is God. I've always been a pretty good athlete. I played basketball, baseball, and football in high school and was pretty good in all three of those sports. But the sport that I was always the best at by far was bowling. It was just a gift. So it seems natural to me to thank the author of that gift, and that would be God. Next, I'd like to thank my mother and father, Pat and Bill Durbin. They were always bowlers. They bowled in leagues as far back as I can remember. My mother took her bowling quite seriously. She was around a 165 average bowler, but would spend many hours practicing, trying to improve. My dad was much more casual and relaxed about it. He was a 180 average bowler all of his life and never really saw any need to try and improve. That is, until I joined the aforementioned men's league. And then that 180 average went from 180 to 189. And I think I averaged 188 that year. So proving the competition brings out the best in all of us. In any case, my mom and dad introduced me to the sport of bowling. They helped form me and make me the person I turned out to be. And even though they've both been gone for over 25 years now, I just simply like to say thanks, Mom and Dad. Next, I'd like to thank my immediate family. My wife and I have 3 children, and they're all here tonight with their children. The first on that list is the oldest, Mike Jr. He's here tonight with his daughter and my granddaughter, Chloe. Mike has been a 200-plus average bowler for well over 20 years. And he's probably always been my biggest fan. All of my bowling memorabilia, including pictures of the 3 Firestones, are down in the basement of his house in Amherst, Ohio. But more than just being a fan, Mike traveled with me a lot on the PBA tour and helped out in so many practical ways, including driving for literally thousands of miles. So Mike, for all that you did, I'd just like to say thanks. Next, I'd like to introduce my daughter, Christine, who's here tonight with her husband, John, and their daughter and my granddaughter, Haley. Christine has my undying admiration, not only for the person that she turned out to be, but for the profession that she chose to follow. She works for a branch of the Cleveland Public School System that deals and tries to help disadvantaged kids that have trouble making it in the regular school system. It's a job that takes enormous patience and understanding, of which she has that in abundance. And she's taken time out from her busy schedule to come here tonight, to fly from Cleveland to here, to be part of this grand occasion tonight. And I'd just like to say thanks, Chris. Next is my youngest son, Matt, who's here tonight with his fiancée, Heather Goodman. They're coming from Louisville, Texas. Matt, probably more than any other person, is responsible for putting together my bowling record and submitting it to the proper channels. And I guess in this case, it was Eric Hartman, is that right? In any case, it enabled me to get on the ballot and have a chance to be elected to the Hall of Fame. And I'd just like to say thank you, Matt. And there, of course, is my wife, Debbie, my wife of 52, soon to be 53 years. Hard to believe, isn't it? She has been my rock of Gibraltar throughout my bowling career. She always supported me in my dream to become a professional bowler and make it on the PBA tour. She always had confidence in me that I could get the job done, even when my own confidence would sometimes wane. And she always believed that my abilities were enough to get the job done. And not only that, she had enormous patience because she had to put up with a husband that would be gone for weeks on end. And during that time, she had to be both mother and father to the 3 kids at home, plus take care of all the responsibilities of a household. So, dearie, for your patience, for your confidence, for your encouragement, for your support, I'd just like to take this opportunity in front of God and everyone to say thanks, sweetheart. Then I'd also like to introduce tonight my sister Susan and her daughter and my niece Jennifer. They've driven all the way from California to be part of this event tonight. Thanks so much, Sue and Jen. I'd also like to thank the founders of the PBA. First to Eddie Elias. The PBA was his brainchild. He thought it up, he organized it, he sold it to the TV networks. And there's not a bowler around that's made his living at that doesn't really owe Eddie Elias a debt of gratitude. I'd also like to thank Joe Antonora, the administrator. He was the commissioner of the PBA for many years. And of course, Harry the Goose Golden, who was the tournament director on the PBA Tour, it seems like forever. And then last, I'd like to thank my fellow competitors, the guys that were the best in their cities, in their states, and eventually their countries, as they came from not only all over the USA, but from all over the world to one location to bowl against each other. You guys were so good, so talented, that you made me reach down inside myself and pull out things that I didn't know were there. You led me to accomplishments that I didn't even daydream about when I started out, so thanks to all of you. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that my wife and I are now traveling the country in a motorhome, seeing things on our bucket list. And we've been everywhere in the last 2 years, from Albany, New York, out to Joshua Tree, California. Well, one place that we visited that stands out in my mind is Cooperstown, New York, the home of the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I was walking through, and by the way, that's an experience I would recommend to anyone, especially if you're a baseball fan. But as I was walking through that hall and looking at all the awards and plaques and everything there, I couldn't help but wonder how those guys must feel to know that they were a part of baseball's lore and history and heroes forever. Because that's what Hall of Fames are all about. They're about remembering and honoring the greats in any individual sport. And now with my induction into the USBC Hall of Fame, I know how they felt, because I too am a member of bowling's lore and history and heroes forever. And for me, it just doesn't get any better than that. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Mike. As I think that you all know from having been to the inductions this evening, as we look to go through the inductions and tell the story, we look to describe more than just the numbers, just the victories over the years. We look to understand the inductees and what makes them so special. Some adjectives in researching Kim Adler that I think are appropriate would be innovator, unique individual, intense competitor. Just a few words that would characterize Kim Adler. Her competition resume is tremendous, of course. 16 career PWBA titles, including the 1999 U.S. Women's Open. Adler was a star on the PWBA Tour in a time when television exposure and the internet were just starting to shine a bright light on athletes. In the new media era, Adler discovered new opportunities for marketing and branding. Those who know Kim Adler have described her as a woman of diverse interests, outdoor sports, a career in the medical field, a very active and very caring person as well. She lives life to the fullest without regrets, and that approach has driven Kim Adler to win in bowling and beyond. Interviewing her, looking back, she points at a difficult family loss as an inspiration for a remarkable career of success. Let's hear that story and learn a little bit more about Kim Adler.
when I was very young, my father was a corrections officer, and he had his 20 years in. He had spent the last year of his life talking about all the things he was going to do with his life. All the traveling, all the things he was going to do when he was retired. And he passed away at 44 of a heart attack. I was 20. And I think at 20 I decided I was going to take that and go with it. I was not going to live my life waiting for something to happen.
Going after her first title, and she does. 1991 Ebonite and Bowling Digest Rookie of the Year. Can she get 9? She got 9.
Kim Adler burst onto the professional scene in 1991, earning PWBA Rookie of the Year honors and quickly making a name for herself as one of the most consistent and determined performers the tour has ever seen.
In my experience, the titles will come if you make enough of the shows. You can't obviously win a title without being on a TV show, the top 5. So the key to that is to get the knowledge and get the experience to get to the number of shows, and then let the rest fall into place.
And make shows she did. During her 12 years on tour, Adler made the TV finals 56 times, becoming one of the most popular fan favorites in the sport.
When I was still working in the emergency department, there was a large biker dude that came in. He was pretty sick. And it was really my job to get him set up in the room and hook him up to the monitors and start an IV and whatever else he needed. And I was in the middle of doing a procedure and putting a tube in him. And as this is all happening and all his stuff, all his personal stuff is out there, he goes, and I'm doing my job, I'm focused, he goes, "You're Kim Adler."
Adler was also a pioneer in the world of athlete endorsements, as she was the first athlete to use the popular auction website eBay to solicit sponsorship.
We had been on eBay for at least 6 months before that, and we were an early user, and I said, well, we could put together an auction and sell some advertising space.
These days, Kim works as a nurse practitioner and lives in a quiet community in New Mexico with her husband Tommy and their young daughter. And she certainly seems to be at peace with her legacy and everything she's accomplished in the sport of bowling and in the game of life.
For all those years that it may have looked like I didn't care, or I was separate or aloof, that I was doing what I needed to do to be at the top of what I was prepared to do at that point. And that there was a lot in my heart.
In the category of superior performance, please join us as we welcome Kim Adler into the USBC Hall of Fame.
It's hard to follow Mike Durbin. Too smooth. That was his first speech ever, too. Crazy. I'd like to first start off by saying congratulations to all the other recipients this evening, and thank you to the Hall of Fame Board with my nomination, and all the USBC members who voted for my induction. My journey to this hall has had many bends in the road for which I would have not traveled differently. Induction into the USBC Hall of Fame is quite often a goal many set out early in their bowling careers to achieve. This was not the case for me early on. But my induction on my way to my master's degree over the past 10 years, I've reflected upon the concept of family honor. It was with this concept I realized I had no choice but to move forward to complete my 20 years of bowling competition mandatory to qualify, not only for me, but for the honor of my bowling family, for all of those who have worked so hard to position me with success. As a young girl, I was raised in the spirit of sports and competition. I had a dream of becoming a champion. In third grade homeroom at 9 years old, I sat amongst a sea of boys, all wanting to be the next Jim Plunkett, Larry Bird, Gordie Howe, Carl Yastrzemski. Can you tell I'm from Massachusetts? I wanted to be a professional bowler. I had never seen a professional woman bowler. I had only watched my idols on Saturday afternoons on television. I would sit with my father at home at 3 p.m. on Saturdays, and I would watch people like Nelson Burton Jr., Earl Anthony, Mark Roth, Steve Cook, Marshall Holman, and others compete. At show close, we would then collect our single ball bags, head to our 24-lane bowling center, Shaker Bowl, in my hometown of East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. Usually wait about an hour for a lane, and then we'd throw a few games, always trying to bowl a better shot and always competing against my father. Saturdays were generally the most important of my youth. I looked forward to being a star on Saturday morning league, not a faceless person in a crowd from school. I received positive attention here. I would prefer this over cartoons for at least 10 years. As a teenager, this was also my most important day for tournaments, and even though I was the best in my area, I wanted more. I wanted to be listed in the AJBC Youth Magazine, a nationwide connection to invisible competitors who didn't know me. I would see the names of the Romeos, Letitia Johnson, Alita Sill, Dee Dee Davidson, Leanne Barrett, the Dorans, Nikki Giannoulias, Donna Adamick, all graced the standings with their high series and high games and college scholarships. I was a 150 average bowler, still in handicap divisions with big dreams. I never won a JBT, a Junior Bowlers Tour tournament, where I competed against the up-and-coming stars my age like Lisa Maurice, Mike Lichstein, Chris Viali, Parker Bone, Becky Craigling. I wasn't good enough. My parents were working-class people, and being involved in more than one passion was way too much money. But at 13 years old, my parents saved up the entire year for me to be able to go to a junior bowling camp to improve. It was here I saw some of the names in the magazines honing their own skills, watching dedication and action. But I was still an average person, an average bowler in comparison to most of the kids there, until a spark. The camp host pro was Bill Spike. He looked me in the eye and he said to me, "You know, I think you could be a pro bowler, one of the best, if you work very hard." And I believed him before I believed myself. And this encouragement helped drive me forward. From here, I carefully developed an eye to watch others in their success and failure. I learned how each day was important in improving upon success, becoming a student of the sport. This was my education at a time more important to me than any college degree, but education nonetheless. Very early on, I also learned the importance of giving back by teaching others as well. My favorite junior league coach, Effie Slanitz, I watched her with her patience and art of communication and positive words. My father's consistent presence, my fellow junior competitors, and their dedication to practice. I learned the basics on how to teach from Vesma Grunfelds when she showed up at my local bowling center to teach us how to coach at 16 years old. This was my early schooling from which I am forever grateful to have been given the opportunity. My father, my rock, the one who stood back in the back behind me during junior leagues, he passed away, as you saw, when I was 20. It was his passing which taught me that earning a wage was less important than living life's experiences when I can. My losing him gave me the first lessons in living in the moment, to feel and experience and to not let it roll carelessly away and be lost. Pursue what I love and the money would follow. He also taught me with his passing the importance of healthy living and healthy relationships. In the coming years, I would begin on the Pro Tour and compete against the very names I had read about all those years. I was in no way an instant success on the Pro Tour. With every small personal victory and defeat, I would analyze what worked and what didn't work, and what it would take to be successful. I have watched several videos of Hall of Fame speeches of many of my fellow competitors, where they speak of how bowling and their team experience shaped their lives. For me, as an only child, a high school loner, bowling was an individual sport, for which it taught me how it was okay to be an individual. Pete Couture and I came from similar upbringings and similar paths. He too considered himself a loner. I watched him fight and scrap and squeeze every little bit emotionally and physically out of his bowling game with a passion for the sport I have never seen previously. He was cerebral, inventive, and ready to work whenever necessary. I thank him tonight by leading me by example with an eye for the sport that was underrated by both him and his own contemporaries. I saw what was left of him after a tournament, both in success and in failure. If I could give him anything during that time we were together, it was the respect to work as hard as he envisioned my own success. He taught me how to both respect and enjoy the learning process because, as we know, being at the top of the sport, there is more in handling the losses than there are from handling the successes because the losses just happen much more frequently in bowling. By luck, I stumbled into a relationship with Pete, which without may have sent me down a completely different life path. I thank him for his patience, his hope to make me a better bowler, which helped me to then reach my best on my early years on tour. Through him, I was able to be in the presence of some of the sport's greats and learned from them as well. The Earl Anthonys and their practice regimes, the Dick Webbers and their personalities to develop not just the better athlete, but a better business person. The Walter Ray Williams and the ability to take science and apply it to bowling success, and many others. I thank all of the instructors through the years that have helped me along my path. Pete Couture, Bill Spigner, Tom Kouros, Fred Borden, Richard Shockley, Ron Hoppy, Michelle Mullen, Jerry Edwards, Denny Torgerson. They either directly or indirectly, through their presence, helped to shape my bowling knowledge, my bowling career, and the knowledge I would then pass on to other bowlers. They also taught me perseverance, positivity, both in how simple and how complicated this sport can be. To Bill Spigner, I've literally known this man longer than any person connected today to my bowling. Meeting Bill and having him such a significant role in my junior bowling path, encouraging me to better my skills, being there the week of my father's passing, being there to pick up the coaching pieces left after Pete and I divorced, encouraging me to write and passing on my bowling knowledge in Bowling Digest magazine were all important stepping stones for me along my bowling career. He has taught me by example that there is knowledge in the simple presence and quiet in which some of the most important lessons can be taught. That there is also always something to be learned. The importance of due diligence, the evolution of bowling knowledge. I am again reminded the offering of presents is sometimes all which is necessary. You and Barb indirectly accepted me into your bowling family, for which I have become a better person. You have made a difference in my life, and I also have watched you do so and so many others, and I thank you for this. Need a tissue. To Jack Bennett, Red Burnham, Sandy Finkelstein, Cindy Mazone, John Davis, and the Kegel Training Center, all leaders of the bowling centers I spent the majority of my bowling life, your personal beliefs about the development of motivating bowlers and giving me all that free practice time really helped me to become a better bowler because of it. And I can't thank you enough for it. The financial cost of bowling is an expensive venture for anyone, and these types of individuals who help not only me but others attempting to further the sport. There is an adage which is spoken in the field of medicine, which is true for bowling. It is see one, do one, and teach one. I have been fortunate to advance my lifelong education both on and off the lanes. My personal success was in part based upon my thirst of all types of knowledge and my pursuit of being the best I could be. Without the art and science of bowling knowledge, I would not have become the better bowler that I am, nor the nurse practitioner I am today. Education remains as vital today to advance the sport, and it is in the spirit of education that became my driving force towards the goal of Hall of Fame induction. Education has also been the vital part of my own transition into another career. I thank all my competitors, too many to name here, the LPBT, the PWBA, the Women's All-Star Association. All their existence allowed me the venue for this education. Without the competitors and the professional tour pushing me every week to be better, none of us would have reached such new levels within the sport and now be able to pass on as much knowledge today from the experience of having it. In my veteran years, my lifelong learning path has circled around now more to what I can give back to others with my experience. In doing so, I have had the pleasure and the gift to once again see the passion of learning through younger bowlers' eyes wanting the same. Elise Bolton came into my life with her family when she was 9 years old. Around 2004, I saw me again, and her presence became my indirect lifeblood to the sport in the years I would be away in pursuit of my new career as a nurse practitioner. Working with Elise and her bowling, I have realized that my bowling family now spans many generations, and with it, I needed to bowl again out of respect for myself, my bowling family, and that family honor. It was not a choice, it was a requirement. They encouraged me to bowl again, first in league and then national tournaments with Elise, and I am grateful to the Bolton family for this gentle encouragement the past 10 years. Oh boy. Okay. Finally, my lifelong learning and success in this sport. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Should have remembered that. Finally, my lifelong learning and success in this sport would not have been possible whatsoever without my husband, Tommy. It was sheer luck or sheer fate that I read a Florida Today newspaper personal ad that he placed, that he listened to my voicemail response to it, and that we would meet and fall in love. Not being a bowler was exactly what I needed for my own success. He picked up my pieces and got me back on the lanes in 1994 when I almost gave up on bowling. He has kept me grounded all these years. His unique perspective has sometimes been looked upon by many to be hazardous in this sport, but I argue it is exactly what the sport needs, and it is individuals like him, those who think outside the box, think of what anything can be with focus, hard work, and an open mind to further the sport and ourselves. He constantly pushes me and the envelope for personal success. Why not look at other athletes for mental strategy? Why not bowl with two hands? Why not cross over Brooklyn for a strike? Why not throw a 14-pound ball? Why not throw a plastic ball as my first ball? He has been my sounding board, lifted me up when sometimes many obstacles were in my way. He has often asked the questions I didn't know were inside me or were afraid to ask, then sometimes leading to tears, but also to tremendous personal growth. He reminds me regularly of my life purpose, the greater good, and doing no harm. He has protected me from the inevitable bad people or bad situations, which can also come with success along the way, and has reminded me there are lessons to be learned not only from the good situations, but from the bad. Those in bowling that think that the only lessons that matter are from being on the lanes are mistaken. He has often gone misunderstood and underappreciated in this sport, but no difference. Everything he has done with me and for me was for us. And my honor this evening also honors him and all those who helped me on my path to success. He relit what was only a small fire at that time about my dream to become first a nurse practitioner and then beyond. He has supported me in the days following September 11th, coaching me on various kitchen floors with the ins and outs of bowling ball layouts, drillings, IV starts, and practicing patient code situations, always on the kitchen floors. He has believed in me more than I've believed in myself sometimes, that I could complete the 8-year marathon education to become a nurse practitioner. He has also stayed quiet in my sabbatical from the sport, more or less supporting me by non-support. But in recent days has admitted to me that he's pleased I've made the decision to return because bowling will forever be a part of me and a part of us. We now, as a family with our daughter Emma in tow, can experience a fresh perspective together, combining everything we only dreamed about just 13 years ago. I thank you and love you with all my heart. And finally, it is also because of him that in 2003 I recalled my very first newspaper photo. And it wasn't of bowling success. It was one of me with a stethoscope in my hand, and I was 5 years old. The photo reminded me of previous dreams, off the lanes as well as on the lanes. My bowling education and those lessons I took away from bowling continued to assist me daily on a continued path of lifelong learning and helps others in many ways. It is for this reason that the USBC Hall of Fame is important to me, and I thank all of those people who have helped me and voted for me in this honor. Thank you.
Congratulations, Kim, again. And ladies and gentlemen, how about one more round of applause for all of our inductees in the USBC Hall of Fame class of 2016. Well, we hope you've enjoyed being a part of history tonight in these induction ceremonies. That concludes the 2016 USBC Hall of Fame induction program. Once again, congratulations to our new members. We would like to invite all of those new Hall of Famers to please come up to the stage for a group photo to be able to make sure that we have a good historical record of this wonderful evening. For everyone else, please enjoy being able to get some photos yourself and mingling here for the next few minutes, and have a wonderful stay for the rest of your time here in Las Vegas at the USBC convention. Good evening.
To be you, it had to be you. I wandered around and finally found the somebody who could make me be true, could make me be blue, or even be glad just to be sad thinking of you. Some others I've seen might never be